Hello viewers and welcome to another match of Warhammer 40,000 Conquest. My name is Mitch and I am the Hive Tyrant. Today we have another Death World Cycle Warlord Proxy match featuring Illuminor Szeras, the Warlord from Pack 4, searching for truth. We've got Joel Henigson playing as our third Necrons faction Warlord, and then up top we've got Thomas Wyatt Mellor playing as Aun'shi. Both players are currently deciding whether or not they want to keep their opening hands. Our Necron has initiative, and do bear in mind we've got an enslavement dial to keep track of at the beginning of each turn's deploy phase. Illuminor Szeras is interesting because he starts the game with 7 cards, but he starts off with just 6 resources. Looks like Joel did decide to take a mulligan. He wound up with his signature attachment and a couple copies of his signature army units, and I believe that Thomas has decided to keep his opening hand. He's got a couple ethereal envoys for fantastic early game command, Borkon recruits for fighting, and of course, the ever-popular Xemian orbital city. So, back to Illuminor Szeras, who picks up his signature attachment. He's a 1/8 warlord, and as a reaction, whenever you remove damage from a Necron army unit you control, whether it's 1, whether it's 5, whatever the amount may be, you gain 1 resource. Illuminor Szeras already picks up his signature attachment, so he's now a base 2/8 warlord, and as a combat action, you can exhaust that attachment to pull a point of damage from a Necron unit at his planet. So he swings for 2, he can remove a point of damage from himself thanks to that attachment, but unless he pulls damage off of an army unit, then he's not actually generating any resources. Here at planet number 1, we've got a copy of one of his signature army units. It's the Augmented Warriors. For the cost of 2, they're a 1 command icon 2/4, but they deal themselves 2 unpreventable damage. But they are made a rather fantastic target for the Eldritch Lance. We could see Illuminor Szeras show up at planet number 1, as a combat action, pull a point of damage off of the Augmented Warriors. Then they're going to be a 2/3 for the modified cost of 1, and Aun'shi, even though he's got Armor Bane, he's only going to be able to attack for 2, and that's going to be insufficient to kill this unit here. But we've got a copy of Viorla Marksman currently positioned at planet number 1, the 3-icon planet Iridial, which heals, and of course, if that heals an army unit, a Necron army unit, that's going to be an opportunity for Szeras to pull damage off of something. We've, interestingly enough, got a copy of Warriors of Gidrim here at planet number 5. It's going to be a 1-cost, 1-command icon unit. It gains a command icon when you have 2 or more non-Necron factions, but of course that is not looking to be the case at the moment, and for an identical cost, Thomas lays down a copy of Ethereal Envoy at the same planet. So the Marksman is going to be able to shoot for 1 during ranged, probably Armor Bane, provided that Aun'shi shows up at that planet, and we've got the Xemian orbital city here, so we could see Aun'shi at planet number 1, Viorla Marksman deals a point of damage to this. Aun'shi does not have initiative, but he could attack for 2 Armor Bane, then his forced reaction is going to trigger, he's going to bounce back to Thomas's HQ, and then we could see Xemian orbital city, return him to the planet readied, then he could attack again, and, you know, it's just a lot of Armor Bane damage going out, but Illuminor Szeras has got that colossal pool of 8 hit points in total, and that's going to be a lot of damage for Aun'shi to try to chew through, but Borkon recruits are a thing, and we've yet to see Aun'shi pass. So, here at planet number 2, we've got Barless. We've got a copy of Augmented Warriors sitting atop Barless, and in regard to victory conditions, if we're talking about blue technology icons, looks like it could be planet 1, 3, 4, and 5. All those have blue icons, and that could result in a pretty early game victory for really either of our players. Here at planet number 1, we see that copy of the Borkon Recruits touchdown. Thomas is going to be only possessing 1 additional resource in his HQ, but now, provided Aun'shi shows up at this planet, the Viorla Marksman is going to be able to attack for 1 Armor Bane. The Borkon Recruits are going to be able to attack for 4 Armor Bane. Aun'shi could attack for 2, then Aun'shi could return. All these units could attack again for a ton of Armor Bane damage, and unfortunately, Illuminor Szeras is not going to be able to do a ton when it comes to just loading up a bunch of outgoing damage on one planet, so we'll have to see if this ends up being a colossal overcommit to planet number 1, because Thomas has laid down a copy of Ethereal Envoy to this planet as well, so it's going to be a huge amount of damage, but it's all invested in one planet, and hopefully just for the sake of giving Illuminor Szeras a fair shake, we'll end up seeing things go okay for our player here. So I don't think that Joel actually set his enslavement dials, so I'll just say remember enslavement dial for the future at beginning of deploy, and I accidentally had a little bit of a typo there, but just in regard to sending our warlord from planet to planet, I guess Aun'shi is going to arrive at planet number 1, so that is a colossal investment in that planet. Planet number 2 is going to be Illuminor Szeras' destination. Bit of a damn shame that Szeras did not show up at planet number 3, but at the very least that basically prevents Aun'shi from winning the battle at planet number 1, and then bouncing Aun'shi to planet number 2, because Aun'shi is going to be unable to snipe this augmented warriors because Illuminor Szeras is chilling at that planet. So that basically prevents a command snipe. And let's see here, that's going to be Joel at the bottom of the screen winning 2 cards, and Thomas instead is just going to get 1 card, 1 resource. He got a copy of Gun Drones, which is going to be fantastic for some area effect Armor Bane. Looks like we see the Eldritch Lance, and it's going to be exhausting to pull a point of damage off of these augmented warriors, and that's going to be +1 resource for Illuminor Szeras. So it's a bit of a shame that we're not going to be seeing Iridial end up healing one of these Necron units, but all the same, it's looking like Aun'shi is going to absolutely obliterate whatever unit it is sitting at this planet. So the Viorla Marksman is going to pop the augmented warriors for 1, then I can only imagine it's going to be this Ethereal Envoy attacking for 1, then it's going to be bounced back to the HQ, and then I suppose if you want, well, seeing as how we've got the Ximian Orbital City here, you may as well have Aun'shi win the battle at this planet, and then bounce Aun'shi to, I guess you could move him to a planet like Elowith or Karnath. I suppose I personally would want to go to Elowith just to kill this Warriors of Gidrim, that 1 command icon unit, and then trigger that battle ability to look at the top 3 cards of your deck for any 1 card you would like. Interestingly enough, this is quite a bit of overkill, but it's not as though we're expecting a lot of combat tricks from the Necron, but the Borkon Recruits, taking no bullshit from anybody, swings for a colossal Armor Bane 4, and that is going to be a very dead copy of Augmented Warriors, reduced from 1 hit point to -3. It's going to be destroyed. Iridial is going to be triggered. It's going to be added to Thomas's victory display. It's going to be a red, green, and blue icon for him. And now, wouldn't you know it, that is going to be a ton of units in his HQ. It's going to be an incredible 4 resources and 3 cards worth of units. But Ximian Orbital City could definitely deposit Aun'shi at any planet. Interestingly enough, it's going to be this copy of Barless that's doing a forced random discard. Looks like that's going to be Fireblade Kyvray discarded, so that's going to be a lot of shielding potential that's gotten rid of. And now Thomas still does have his gun drones. He's got a copy of the Ennui Prelate. Illuminor Szeras bounces back to HQ. And now, are we going to see Aun'shi dropped off at a planet? You could either do Barless to do a random card discard, or you could do Elowith to kill that Warriors of Gidrim. So what exactly is Thomas going to do? Thomas indicates that he has no additional actions. Perhaps he's not actually going to be using his orbital city, so I will just, well, I don't know, I guess I just did not want to interfere, but what we should have seen is Ximian Orbital City used as a combat action, and again, I think I'd have killed this Warriors of Gidrim here, but not that big of a deal, I suppose, even though it is kind of a big deal. You're foregoing a battle ability, and instead of tying your command with your opponent, you're you're giving up winning a command struggle, but regardless, I suppose we move through an HQ phase that is going to be 2 cards and 4 resources for each of our players. Our new first planet is going to be Barless, that forced random card discard planet. New 5th planet is going to be Farron, the Route, a target non-warlord unit planet. At planet number 2, we've got a copy of the Kroot Hunter for the cost of basically 1, but then its reaction at a red planet is you refund 1 resource. It's a unit that Thomas is rather fond of, and I can't necessarily blame him because a 2/2 for the modified cost of 0, definitely nothing to complain about at that planet. Plus, it's going to be a Tau faction unit, therefore it gains Armor Bane. It benefits from the Ennui Prelate, as does any other unit. Bit of a shame that it's an ally, but we'll have to see how things end up going. We've got a copy of the Canoptech Scarab Swarm. It's going to be a 1-cost 2/2. When it's destroyed, you can return a Necron unit, like the Augmented Warriors, to your hand from your discard pile. And then just in regard to other cards in Illuminor Szeras' hand, he's got a couple of copies of Promotion. That Scarab Swarm is going to be sitting at planet number 1 to potentially win Barless. I'll be really curious to see where Aun'shi decides to go. I would not be shocked to see Aun'shi, I guess, deposit all of these units at like Yavvarn, or maybe just deposit all of them at Elowith and stretch out the game, since Yavvarn is going to be a very, very, very low value planet, and Elowith you could scarcely have a higher value planet. But with 4 resources remaining, for both of our players, let's go ahead and take a look at Illuminor Szeras' hand. He's got a copy of the Lichguard Sentinel. This is a card I had the opportunity to spoil on the Tyrant cast. It's going to be a 5-cost 2/6, but if you've got 6 or more units in your discard pile, and at the moment there is only 1, it's going to be a 10 HP unit with a Royal Phylactery. That's going to be at the beginning of every phase, and at the beginning of every combat round, you pull a point of damage off of it. So if it takes enough damage, that is going to be absolutely fantastic in conjunction with Illuminor Szeras' ability to just generate a mountain of resources, 4, 1 for each phase, and then 1 per combat round. If you've got that much damage on the Lichguard, is going to be absolutely nuts. We've got a copy of Recycle to potentially discard some army units from our Necron player's hand, then he can draw additional cards. He's got a copy of Master Program to sacrifice drones to remove damage from target Necron units, like the Lichguard Sentinel. And of course, a drone he's got in play is going to be the Canoptech Scarab Swarm. Recycle, we're going to see a copy of Promotion discarded, and then he's also got a copy of Resurrection Orb that he's going to be discarding. That's a bit of a shame to see that 2 shield icon card discarded, and it's also a bit of a bummer that Joel only has 3 resources remaining, but he drew a couple of copies of the Canoptech Spider. So you can discard a unit card from your hand to remove 2 points of damage from a Necron army unit you control at its planet, limit once per combat round. That does directly feed into the Lichguard Sentinel's ability because you're filling up your discard pile with units. But he doesn't exactly have enough resources to get all of that underway. Here at planet number 1, we've got another copy of Borkon Recruits, so I suppose I wouldn't be terribly shocked, just knowing Thomas, to see if he commits his entire Warlord train to planet number 1, and it looks like we're going to see a copy of Gun Drones affixed to this Borkon Recruits. So if Thomas sends his Warlord to planet number 1, he's going to have initiative, he's going to be able to use Gun Drones to do Armor Bane Area Effect 2 at this planet. That's going to be a wounded copy of the Augmented Warriors, not quite killed. I'll go ahead and say it's the page down keys to put an attachment below a unit. Thomas is a rather practiced player, but he's new to the OCTGN environment. So I will say mouse over and page down is how you can do that, and there he figures it out. Warriors of Gidram picks up a copy of Promotion. Now it's going to be 3 command icons opposite 1, which means that Illuminor Szeras here is potentially going to be winning command, and the entire reason behind attempting to do a proxy match with Illuminor Szeras already, despite his eventual unveil in Death World War Pack number 4, is that the fair few players that I've consulted do believe that Szeras is viable now, without the entire card pool that he would need. Like, he's going to have a lot more cards by the time we do finally get to War Pack number 4, and this just got really really interesting here. So Mind Shackle Scarab is now going to be attached to this copy of Borkon Recruits, and it looks like this is going to create a little bit of a rules quandary for us. The Mind Shackle Scarab is going to be attached to this copy of Borkon Recruits. If the attached unit's faction symbol matches the enslaved faction, which it does, it's currently Tau, you can exhaust the attachment to gain control of the attached unit until the end of the phase. And just when I thought everything was about to go all the way bad for poor Illuminor Szeras here, Szeras shows up at planet number 1. We're going to be able to see the Mind Shackle Scarab result in this unit being taken control of, and I suppose like it's until the end of the phase, so I can only imagine that when this is going to be swept up into Szeras's HQ, the mind-shackled unit is going to be returned to the other player's HQ once you lose control of it. I'll probably end up pausing the video to check and ensure that that is indeed the case, but Thomas ends up winning a card and a resource during deploy, or during command, one of those being Slumbering Gardens, which, for those that don't quite recall, that is going to be when an effect would move a unit you control from a planet, you exhaust the support to cancel that effect. So Szeras uses his ability to pull a point of damage off of the Augmented Warriors. That's going to be another +1 resource for Illuminor Szeras. And let's see, we're about to see combat. Joel himself drew 4 cards during command. So I will just go ahead and say 1 moment to check a rule. Please pause gameplay. All right, so after taking just a moment to verify that this is indeed the case, we've got this enslaved unit, this Borkon Recruits. Once Barlas is going to be captured, then the Borkon Recruits is going to be moved to Illuminor Szeras's HQ, and then at the end of the phase, the Borkon Recruits is going to be going from one player's HQ to the other player's HQ. So a huge thanks to Paul Steiner for verifying that, and it looks like Barlas's forced random card discard is that copy of Slumbering Gardens, so that's not terribly useful in this game, and I suppose Thomas is pretty fortunate that he did not lose that copy of Ennui Prelate. So this is going to be pretty interesting. That's going to be a green strong point icon added to the victory display here of Joel, and now Joel's got a lot of units in his HQ. He's presumably not going to be able to win this planet at which resides Aun'shi, because, I mean, obviously, look at this giant pile of units here. Okay, I guess Karnath is going to be targeting, okay, so I believe he's targeting Farron, and Farron is going to result in probably the routing of this Warriors of Gidrim there. So I think if it were me, what I would do, again, is I would have triggered Eloith's ability, and then I'd have used the Xemian Orbital City to move Aun'shi to Eloith, and then I'd have killed the Warriors of Gidrim outright, and then I'd have gotten 2 triggers of Eloith within the same turn. But definitely not the end of the world, and you know, big part of these videos is making little learning experiences for ourselves. But definitely that's a huge part of the power behind the Xemian Orbital City here. So, looks like we're about to go to the end of our round. In the HQ phase, that's going to be 2 cards and 4 resources for each player. At the end of the phase, the Borkon Recruits is going to go back to the control of Thomas. I'll just go ahead and say yes, sir. So Thomas is now going to regain control of his Borkon Recruits and the gun drones. And now, would you look at Illuminor Szeras's hand here? So Thomas has got a copy of his signature attachment, the Honor Blade, where each other Tau unit at the same planet as generally his Warlord gets +1 attack. And then he's also got a copy of Ion Rifle, and he's got 5 resources with which to play these. So he could do Honor Blade, and then he could do Ennui Prelate, and both of those at the same planet would would give pretty much every Tau unit present +2 attack power, apart from the unit that the Honor Blade is equipped to, and apart from the Ennui Prelate. But it's going to be a pretty powerful effect here indeed. On the enslavement dial, looks like we've once again got Tau selected, and unfortunately, we've got a spectator asking a lot of questions, and I will just say it can stay the same since our spectator is interfering with this video, not to be a bit of an ass. But anyways, Illuminor Szeras' hand, we've got another couple of copies of the Canoptech Scarab Swarm. We've currently got 5 resources, so the master program could be used in conjunction with this Canoptech Scarab Swarm that's going to be arriving exhausted at a planet to heal damage and generate additional resources for Illuminor Szeras. We're starting to get an awful lot of units in hand, therefore this Canoptech Spider, say for the cost of 4, if you're hanging out, like if you play this unit to a planet during a battle, you can discard a unit card from your hand to pull 2 points of damage off of this unit. So you could discard something like, Canoptech Scarab Swarm, pull 2 points of damage off of this same unit, and then it's going to end up generating 1 resource for itself. So you've got a unit where it's going to constantly be healing itself, it's going to constantly be generating resources for you, and maybe if you've got a master program in play, the moment before your Canoptech Spider dies, ideally after it's attacked, you sacrifice it to heal another Necron unit. So certainly the opportunities are legion for Illuminor Szeras to gain a ton of resources. We've even got healing effects along the lines of Reanimation Protocol here, where max once per round you can pull 2 points of damage off of a Necron unit, and provided it's not your Warlord, that's going to be another source of resources. We've got a Canoptech Scarab Swarm here played out to planet number 2. We've got that copy of Honor Blade, which is going to be affixed to, I can only imagine. No, interestingly enough, it's going to be on this copy of Ethereal Envoy, so that's a rather interesting choice indeed. Thomas is presumably going to be able to win at planet number 1 without too much contest, if any contest at all, and that is going to be a second red and blue icon added to his victory display, and then it's going to be up to him at that point to win any other first planet, with the sole exception of Ossus 4 here. And then really Illuminor Szeras is just going to have to try to block off his opponent's victory condition, and he's kind of given up his economic lead because of the loss of that Warriors of Gidrim that had the promotion on it, and I'll just be really curious to see if he can end up doing much of anything. Illuminor Szeras may need to deposit his forces here at planet number 2 just to prevent his opponent from winning the game during the following round, but we could even see Aun'shi commit his Warlord to planet number 3 just to set up his copy of the gun drones laden Borkon recruits. But I suppose what we could also see is Mind Shackle Scarab is of course still affixed to this unit, so if it shows up at a planet with Aun'shi, we could have our Necron player gain control of it even though it's exhausted, and then Aun'shi would essentially be forced to kill it. Or we could just wait until that unit is ready, and then our Necron player could wait until the opportunistic moment. Like, you could wait immediately prior to your having a combat round, and then you could unleash that devastating area effect too, albeit not Armorbane, volley at your enemy there. So we've got a Canoptech Scarab Swarm at planet number 1. That's a really curious choice. Not sure what exactly Joel is deciding to do by putting a 2/2 at that planet. Note that in regard to units to return to his hand, all he's got is a copy of Augmented Warriors. It will be another thing he could potentially discard in conjunction with Canoptech Spiders to heal units, but he doesn't have any of those out in play yet. And if he continually depletes his discard pile of units, then he's going to be turning off the ability of his Lich Guard Sentinel here. So I'll be interested to see what Illuminor Szeras does, if anything, to attempt to salvage this match. At the moment, he doesn't have any wounded units. The Eldritch Lance can only heal Necron units that are at the same planet, so Viorlaw Marksman, which is attacking for 2 thanks to the Honor Blade, it's just going to outright kill this copy of the Scarab Swarm, so I'm genuinely perplexed as to what exactly exactly the thought process is behind putting this unit to that planet, but perhaps Joel knows something I don't. Joel, perhaps his saving grace here is going to be this copy of Mechanical Enhancement, should he manage to get a reasonably sized army. Just because if each of his Necron units have additional HP, including his Warlord, he might be able to survive enough damage coming out from these like ethereal units that are going to be forced to retreat from the same planet. So it looks like both of our players have at this point passed. They're going to be deciding where exactly they want to send their respective warlords. I would not be shocked to see planet number 3 for Thomas. Looks like it's going to be planet number 5, so he's decided to drop off his copy of Borcon recruits at the single most irrelevant planet possible, which I can't necessarily blame him for, but provided that that is the case, that that's going to be the destination of that unit, I wouldn't be surprised to see Mindshackle Scarab take control of that unit just to force Aun'shi to kill it. And if that's the case, he's not going to be able to hang around long enough to activate the battle ability of that planet unless we see Xemian Orbital City redeposit Aun'shi at that planet. But, you know, what you could have done is if you wanted to trigger Ossus 4, you could have dropped off your dude here at Planet 4 and then killed it, bounced back to the HQ, then redeposited your units to trigger Farron or Ossus 4, but I suppose it doesn't really make any difference. It just maybe limits your choice ever so slightly. But Thomas is going to end up winning 3 cards and 3 resources relative to the paltry 1 resource alone afforded to poor Illuminor Szeras. It's going to be Thomas with 7 resources, 5 cards, and that is going to be Joel with 4 resources and 8 cards. So unfortunately, it looks like the cost curve of his deck is a little bit prohibitively expensive, even in the context of getting his signature attachment on the first turn here. And it looks like this poor Canoptech Scarab Swarm that was sent out to die is going to get absolutely obliterated with no more than a moment's notice. So the Viorla Marksman is going to go ahead and hit it for 2. It is 2 damage, so I will say, yeah, Honor Blade, 2 damage. Canoptech Scarab Swarm is going to be outright killed, but it is not going to be Armor Bane damage, so it looks like that interrupt effect is going to be used immediately prior to the Canoptech Scarab Swarm leaving play. The Augmented Warriors is going to be returned to the hand of Illuminor Szeras, and that's going to be a battle ability won here by our Tau player. So is it going to be Elwith? Is it going to be Farron routing a unit, or is it going to be Ossus 4 stealing a resource from Joel, who is kind of struggling in the resource department? Szeras is going to be set up to block his opponent's win condition at planet number 2, but provided that all of these units are going to be bouncing into our Tau player's HQ, we might see all of these units redeposited at our current planet number 3 the following round, and then that's going to set up Thomas wonderfully to potentially win. So planet number 1 is going to be captured. That Warriors of Gidrim that I believe was at planet number 2 is now going to be routed. That's going to be a bunch of units in Thomas's HQ. He's still got the Xemian Orbital City. He's got Ethereal Wisdom, where he can give one of his units, like the Viorla Warrior Cadre, +1 attack, and the Ethereal trait. And the moment it gets the Ethereal trait, it's going to be eligible for the Xemian Orbital City. Thomas does have an adequate number of resources with which to use his Ennui Prelate. Interestingly enough, Joel is going to end up winning this battle here at Yvonne. I suppose I wouldn't be shocked to see him trigger that planet. He could put his Lichguard Sentinel into play, or a copy of Canoptech Scarab Swarm, and he does decide to trigger it. Looks like it's going to be the Lichguard Sentinel put into play. For some reason, it looks like Joel has got a preference to play his units as low on the screen as is possible, so we can get our playing surface as out of focus as we can. I hope you've had your eyes checked lately, dear viewers, because things are getting pretty teeny indeed. So this is going to be the Earthcast Technician being put into play. It's got a reaction where it's not when it's deployed, but when it is put into play, you get to reveal a drone or attachment card. Unfortunately, that's a drone or attachment only, so that is not going to be an eligible target. Apparently, Thomas clicked on the wrong recipient of that effect. So just say bottom of deck, not discard, please. And no, I'm just going to say no, just select appropriate card, please. Because otherwise that would be weird. This isn't like a hyper-competitive environment, so it's not the end of the world. And yeah, so the warrior cadre should go to the bottom of his deck. I'll just say move card to the very bottom side of your deck. Arrow key will pop up to show you did it right. Drop at the bottommost part of your deck. South as you can. Okay, so hopefully he'll figure that out in just a moment, and there, he did figure it out, and we'll be able to see a drone or attachment put onto the table and subsequently into his hand here. So, Yvarn did trigger the Lichguard Sentinel. Let's see how many army units have we got. We've currently only got one army unit, which is about as far from 6 as you can possibly get. The cool thing about the Lichguard Sentinel is, provided that it's ready, your opponent has to declare so your opponent has to declare a ready unit named Lichguard Sentinel as a defender if able. So if the Lichguard Sentinel is ready, it has to be the recipient of all of those attacks. Thomas found a copy of Recon Drone because he isn't already doing well enough economically. So Illuminor Szeras bounces back to his HQ, and now we're going to be seeing Aun'shi trigger a battle at this planet. I can only imagine that we'll be seeing this Mindshackle Scarab take control of the Borkon recruits, just because otherwise this Mindshackle Scarab, like if the Borkon recruits is left alive, then that is going to result in, it's going to result in this Borkon recruit sitting there and winning command. We finally see the Xemian Orbital City do something. The Ethereal Envoy that had that Honor Blade is going to be deposited at our soon-to-be planet number 2 ready. That's going to be a likely victory condition planet for Thomas, and there we go. So that is going to be that Mindshackle Scarab taking control of the Borkon recruits. It's going to be Aun'shi attacking for 2 Armor Bane and killing the Borkon recruits, but then Aun'shi is going to, after killing his own unit, he's going to have to bounce away from that planet, and then he's not going to have an opportunity to trigger that planet's battle ability. And he is going to lose his gun drones. He's also going to lose his Borkon recruits. So it's at least nice that it's not going to be 2 resources won by Aun'shi, probably during the next round, and then during the next round as well. So, the Mindshackle Scarab did prevent a lot of damage, so that's certainly nice. The Borkon recruits are going to be dead. The Mindshackle Scarab is going to be dead, and then Aun'shi is going to be placed back in his HQ with no ability to trigger Ausis 4. So as soon as Thomas retakes control of these units, he'll be able to drop those off back into his discard pile, and that is pretty much going to be that. Illuminor Szeras is going to want to presumably drop off these units at our soon-to-be planet number 2 so that he can block his opponent's victory condition, but he's got to deal with this Ethereal Envoy, which can attack for 2, this Ethereal Envoy, which can attack at 1, and then I suppose upon resolution of those attacks, they're going to be moving away from that planet. So we go through another HQ phase. That's going to be 4 resources and 2 cards for each of our players. Our new first planet is going to be Yvarn, and our old last planet, still last planet, is going to be Ausis 4, that steal a resource planet. So let's see what is going to happen here. Recon Drones touches down on the table. We've still got Tau selected as our enslaved faction. Recon Drones is presumably going to be winning command at planet number 3. Thomas has got a copy of Kauyon Strike, so I suppose theoretically we could see Aun'shi fight at a battle at planet number 1 and then trigger a battle at planet number 2 thanks to the Xemian Orbital City, and we could also see him fight at a battle at planet number 3 or 4 thanks to the Kauyon Strike. So this underused Xemian Orbital City, a little bit letting me down, bit of a shame that that's not really getting the workout that it deserves. And then in regard to Illuminor Szeras here, it looks like this cost curve is just killing our Necron player. We could see a copy of Lichguard Sentinel played ready at planet number 2. It could certainly soak up the attacks of these Ethereal Envoys, like an attack of 2, an attack of 1, because it'll be sitting at that planet ready. We could see Reanimation Protocol used to strip some damage off of it. That would be +1 resource for Szeras, which would be critically important for him. And then we could also see Szeras use his Eldritch Lance, if he's at planet number 2 or something, to pull another point of damage off of an army unit, and then that would be another resource for him as well. We've got 5 resources for Dr. Tote, I believe is how he pronounces that. Yeah, so using proxies, we want to make sure that Joel isn't overpaying for these units. The augmented warriors do cost 3, they do cost 2, not 3, as the destroyer cultist does that we're using as a proxy here. Thomas has still got 11 resources. We could easily see the Ennui Prelate be used to devastating effect. So we might see Aun'shi show up at planet number 1. He doesn't really have that much to contest, but I would kind of hope that Thomas does the conservative safe play by dropping off Aun'shi's Death Bio Ball at his sure win here, planet number 2. Interestingly enough, Thomas decides to put this Ethereal Envoy at planet number 2. It's going to be able to attack for 2, courtesy of the Honor Blade, and I suppose what we could see is, hell, we could have all 3 of these units finish their attacks, all those forced reactions trigger to remove them from the planet, and then we could see Kauyon Strike move all of them back to the planet. So it looks like Thomas's options are legion, even without using Xemian Orbital City to its utmost effect, and unfortunately it looks like Illuminor Szeras' deck was maybe constructed a little bit suboptimally, or he's otherwise getting a suboptimal draw, just because all of these effects are so monumentally expensive. Like the Lichguard Sentinel are prohibitively expensive, and the Canoptech Spiders are a little bit too pricey to handle. We did happen to see a copy of Reanimation Protocol heal these augmented warriors back up to their full undepleted maximum pool of 4 hit points, and that's going to be +1 resource for Illuminor Szeras. We've got a copy of Ion Rifle now affixed to one of these Ethereal Envoys here, and now it's going to be able to attack for a base of 4, modified up to 5, courtesy of this Honor Blade. Illuminor Szeras does not have anything along the lines of Archon's Terror. He does have another copy of Mindshackle Scarab, but do you really want to invest 3 resources and a card, all in stealing one, unit? I guess you'll be able to attack with it for 4, and you deprive your opponent of it, but still, man, that is a steep expense. So we'll have to see how things end up playing out. Thomas laid down that copy of Ion Rifle. It's going to be up to Joel to decide what exactly he wants to do with the remainder of his resources during this critically important battle at this presumable last planet here. He's going to need Mechanical Enhancement to give all of his units +2 HP, but what's probably going to suck for him is Aun'shi is likely going to be depositing all of these units to planet number 2. Joel is going to have all of these units swept up into his HQ, and then he's going to drop them off at this planet, and they are going to get absolutely wrecked because of all the armor bane damage coming out from Aun'shi, and we'll just have to see how things are resolved in the end. That Mindshackle Scarab is currently affixed to the Ethereal Envoy. It's going to be able to gain control of it, but unfortunately it's not going to benefit from the Honor Blade, and it's not going to gain benefit of Armor Bane from Aun'shi either. So Joel looks like he's increasingly between a rock and a hard place. For sending his warlord to planets. If Illuminor Szeras has the audacity to show up at planet number 2, he could take an attack of 1, an attack of 2, and Illuminor Szeras will be able to gain control of this Ethereal Envoy, and he'll be able to attack with it. Interestingly, we see another Mindshackle Scarab played, and that is kind of a fascinating effect here. We could see both of those units, we could see each of these units stolen by Illuminor Szeras, and then this unit's going to be able to attack for 5, because I guess our Necron player would control 2 signature attachments. So that is very cool, but that unfortunately is an effect which only persists until the end of the phase, and maybe, when these units attack, they're going to be bounced back to the HQ of Szeras, and then at the end of the phase, they're going to be moved to Thomas's HQ. So that's a pretty fascinating little rules interaction there. Maybe that's going to end up doing a lot of work for Szeras, but at the same time, I guess I'll be curious to see if it is enough. I suppose to no one's surprise, Thomas decides to go after all to planet number 2, and Joel instead goes to planet number 1. So he's going to be winning no more than a mere 1 resource. That's going to be 2 cards and 2 resources for Aun'shi, and now things are looking all but insurmountable for our Necron. So we're going to be seeing our command struggles resolved at present. We've also got that copy of Recon Drones that's winning command. I'll just say, don't forget Recon Drones Planets. And a little typo there. No, never mind. It wasn't a typo at all. But we're about to see our command phase finish up. And once we get into combat, that is going to be Yvarn captured, added to the victory display of Illuminor Szeras, but it's only going to be 2 green strong point icons. And unless somehow Illuminor Szeras is going to be able to block Aun'shi from winning at 2, Aun'shi from winning at 3, and then he finally captures Planet 4. Things are looking pretty tricky here indeed, but interestingly enough, I was kind of wondering if we were going to see a lot of ethereals relocated to our planet number 1. That does not seem to be the case. Kauyon Strike is going to be shifting both of those ethereals to planet number 4, where it's going to be rather irrelevant. So we could see, I guess, yeah, so Joel says he's got the first action, so maybe that's a little bit of a misplay there. So the initiative is going to be in, it's in control. Yeah, so I will just say Thomas is correct. He has initiative and can use an action first. So right at the very beginning of the combat phase, we can see Thomas use his Kauyon Strike, which is a combat action, and he can deposit those units on planet number 4. That's absolutely no problem whatsoever. Even if Joel wanted to use the Mindshackle Scarabs as his very first action, he doesn't have that opportunity because Thomas is going to be our player with initiative. The fact that these are both stranded on this planet number 4 kind of introduces a rather interesting prospect. So what we could see happen, okay, well, all right, first of all, battle at Yvarn, we see it triggered. It's going to be a Kroot Hunter put into the display, or put into the HQ of Thomas, and let's see here. So, Thomas, you paid for your Kroot, regain 1 resource. So Lychguard Sentinel was put into play. Thomas erroneously deployed the Kroot Hunter. It's supposed to be put into play for free at the HQ, so definitely our Necron got the better end of the deal there. We've got a battle here that's going to take place for Aun'shi. He's going to have an opportunity to look at the top 3 cards of his deck, add 1 of those to his hand. Thomas has got initiative, so that means he's going to have to attack first. So what we could see happen is we could see our Necron player gain control of this ethereal envoy. Thomas is going to have to attack first with an ethereal envoy that has an attack value of 1. He would have the opportunity to attack outward at this unit. In fact, he'd be forced to. His forced reaction would trigger. He'd remove his unit from the planet, and then the ethereal envoy would be left sitting here under the control of Szeras, and then Szeras would win that battle. It would be different if we saw Xemian Orbital City return either Aun'shi or like this ethereal envoy back to that same planet so that it could attack again, but something in my gut tells me that we're not actually going to see any control gained of either of these units. I suppose I wouldn't be surprised one way or the other. Looks like Joel indeed wants to pass, so, you know, I think you probably could have done at least something interesting with that effect. Right in the nick of time, our Necron player draws a possible game changer We'll have to see if this ends up making enough of a difference, but we go through another HQ phase. That's going to be 4 resources and 2 cards for each player. We get a copy of, one of 2 copies of the signature event for Szeras. It is Vivisection. It costs 3. You target a planet, you remove 1 damage from each Necron unit you control at the targeted planet, and you deal a point of damage to each non-Necron unit at the targeted planet. And that is a whole hell of a lot of Tau units that affects. And if you combine that with something along the lines of mechanical enhancement, if you can pull damage off of multiple units, then each and every unit healed is going to trigger Illuminor Szeras' ability, and that could fund effects along the lines of, I guess, more mechanical enhancements, but we'll just have to see what Illuminor Szeras ends up drawing. It's looking like he's probably not going to end up winning any additional command during this game, so if it were me, I suppose save resources for Vivisection and a mechanical enhancement, but all of these units are going to be showing up to be exhausted at this planet. That is going to be a mountain of outgoing damage. Unfortunately, these Lichguard Sentinels are still only sitting at 6 total hit points. In the discard pile, we've only got a mere 1 army unit, so Szeras is not looking like he's going to be able to have these as 10 HP units. Interestingly enough, Thomas uses somewhat of a community maligned card here. He puts out a copy of Colony Shield Generator, 0 cost upgrade trait support. When a support card you control would be targeted, you can exhaust that support to have it be the target instead. So a Squig Bombman would blow up Colony Shield Generator instead of the Xemian Orbital City here. So, powerful effect in the right situation. It's not really doing anything right now, but it costs 0. It's a deploy stall, and let's see what, if anything else, we're going to see from our Necron. I really think the only option here is for our Necron player to hang on to this copy of Vivisection for as long as possible, but what kind of sucks is we saw this copy of Master Program used, and now that Master Program, like, I guess you've got to exhaust it and sacrifice a drone to heal a Necron faction army unit from all of its damage to 100% healed, but that's only going to be 1 point, it's only going to be 1 resource gained. Illuminor Szeras is only going to be able to generate 1 resource. That could be a total of 6, so we could see mechanical enhancement and Vivisection both used after all. Okay, so we see a copy of Canoptech's Spider put out. We do have 2 army units in hand, so that's basically, paying something like 2 resources for a 4/3 with a command icon is pretty damn good. But a Borkon Recruits is going to be able to outright kill it with Armorbane unless we see a mechanical enhancement used. And, the last time I checked, we've got 0 resources for Joel, and he's going to have to heal 2 different damaged units prior to being able to do anything cute, like, keep his Canoptech Spider alive. 5 HP is going to be enough to survive a 4 Armorbane attack, but he's not at 5 HP right now, and if the Borkon Recruits clears that out immediately, then there's going to be no opportunity to collect additional resources from Reanimation Protocol or the Eldritch Lance, so I think that may have been a bit of a bed-shitting and a bit of a poor life choice there, but Thomas lays down a copy of Slumbering Gardens, another entirely ineffectual support. Unfortunately, it's going to be when an effect would move a unit you control from a planet, but the Necrons aren't really big on moving units. Even Farron, which routes units, it routes them, it does not move them, so that about sucks. Definitely would discourage players from running Slumbering Gardens in their decks, and generally I would not recommend Colony Shield Generator either, but regardless, it looks like Illuminor Szeras is preparing himself for a bit of a sound thrashing, because this is going to be a whole hell of a lot of outgoing damage, and not enough resources at present to play this copy of Vivisection, so I can only imagine it's going to be both players sending their respective warlords to planet number 1. Aun'shi is going to result in all of this damage being Armorbane. Aun'shi does not have initiative, but things are looking pretty grim for our dear Necron player here. So be sure to let me know in the comments below what you think Illuminor Szeras could have potentially done differently to give himself more of a fighting chance. He did get lucky with that signature attachment early game pull, but the cost curve was just kind of killing him throughout the course of this match. And perhaps some of our, community members whose opinions I quite value spoke a little bit too soon when they said, go ahead, Mitch, go ahead and proxy a match with Illuminor Szeras, because it's definitely not my goal to portray any of these Death World warlords in anything approximating a suboptimal light. I'd love Illuminor Szeras to get a bit of a fair shake. We do know the full contents of Jungles of Nectavus. We don't know what possible Necron options are going to come out in Pack 2 and Pack 3, but there's there could certainly be something to make Illuminor Szeras a little bit more viable, or maybe this was just one bad game here for Illuminor Szeras, but we've gone through our HQ phase. That's 2 cards and 4 resources for our Tau player. He's got a total of 12 resources. After putting an Ennui Prelate into play, that's going to be +1 attack for each other Tau unit at the planet. Aun'shi is attacking for 3. This Viorla Marksman, during ranged, is going to be able to attack for 2. If it's toward an army unit, Illuminor Szeras is going to be able to use a combat action to heal that unit and gain 1 resource, but it's looking pretty damn grim for Szeras. He could even be bloodied and removed from that planet. Let's say bloodied Szeras is a 1/6 like the other Necrons. Very interestingly, we see Ethereal Wisdom used on the Viorla Marksman. I thought for a second we were going to see this, for some reason, used on like one of these Ethereal Envoys that already has the Ethereal trait. And I was like, no, Thomas, don't bring a Mindshackle Scarab unit to planet number 1. But anyways, for the cost of 0, it's going to be this Viorla Marksman now with the ability to attack for 3 during range with Armor Bane. And that's going to be enough to kill off this copy of the Canoptech Spider. And that is looking to go all the way back for poor Illuminor Szeras. So it's going to be able to shoot for 3, and what exactly is going to be its target? We see a copy of Master Program exhausted, and it cannot be exhausted at the moment, because it would not change the game state whatsoever. So what exactly are we seeing here? So we're seeing this copy of Ethereal Envoy mind-controlled as an action, and now what are we seeing? So let's see, what is Joel thinking? Okay, so we've got another, we have a second copy of Ethereal Wisdom being played, and is that going to be the Viorla Marksman? Yes, so now it's going to have the opportunity to attack for 4. That's a very curious choice indeed. We see the Mindshackle Scarab activate again, and that's going to be Illuminor Szeras gaining control of that unit. The Mindshackle Scarab here is, let's see here, exhaust the attachment to gain control of the attached unit until the end of the phase. So what is, alright, so I will say Master Program, what? So it is remove all damage and ready it. So it is affecting the game state. I suppose perhaps that was a little bit of a mistake or misplay on my part. Frankly, I'm not sure if this Ethereal Envoy is going to have its control regain. Pause. Well, okay, so let's just go off of what Joel is saying. He says, no, you don't regain control of that unit. Mindshackle Scarab says you gain control of attached unit until the end of the phase. I suppose there's no longer an attached unit, so I don't think it's going to end up influencing the outcome of this game or not. So yeah, I will trust Joel. And, okay, yeah, Random Joe Huber, the gentleman who knocked me out of the Winter 2016 Black Crusade, and who knocked me out of the Tacoma, Washington Regional Championship, like in the finals, he probably knows much better than I do, so let's just go ahead and trust him. So, that is going to be a readied Lichguard Sentinel. It is sitting pretty at 6 resources, but it, of course, didn't have an opportunity to heal, and now this Viorla Marksman is going to have an opportunity to attack for a grand total of 4 at range. Unfortunately, its only eligible target is going to be this copy of Lichguard Sentinel there. So that is going to be a total of 4 attack, and now the Lichguard Sentinel is going to be practically destroyed, but we could see the Canoptech Spider use its ability now to heal some damage off of that unit. We could also see, well, I guess the appropriate order, if you wanted to do Vivisection now, would be to use Szeras's signature attachment, then the Canoptech Spider, and then a copy of Reanimation Protocols would allow you to use Vivisection, but you may also want to save that for when it's more worthwhile. So, by no means is this battle over yet. We've just seen one ranged attack, and now it's going to be up to Illuminor Szeras to attack. The Ethereal Wisdom does grant an attack bonus that persists until the end of the phase, so that Viorla Marksman is still going to be able to attack. The Canoptech Spider takes a swing, and that's going to be that Borkon Recruits, which was sitting at an attack value of 5. It's going to be outright slain, and that is a bit too bad. But for all of these units, we're not going to be seeing any opportunity to shield. I suppose I'll just have to see if we're going to be seeing much, if any, healing from Illuminor Szeras, and it's going to be critically important that we mind our action windows here. So what all are we going to see? Thomas loses his copy of Borkon Recruits, and now it's going to be Szeras's opportunity to take an action. So Joel targets his copy of Lichguard Sentinel, and he is triggering the spider, so he's going to have an opportunity here to discard an army unit from his hand, and he'll pull a couple of points of damage off of that unit, and he's also going to gain the benefit of 1 resource. So what army unit is he going to be discarding? He discards a copy of Reanimating Warriors. That's going to be 2 damage removed from his Sentinel, and it's going to be a resource granted to him. So he's going to be at 1 out of the 3 required of Vivisection. It's going to be Thomas's opportunity for an action. Thomas indicates no action whatsoever. Joel is going to use his Eldritch Lance to pull another point of damage off of his Lichguard Sentinel here, and now he could attack with his Warlord for 2, or he could, I suppose, also attack with the Lichguard Sentinel for 2, but that may be a little bit inadvisable, and at present, I believe we're still sitting at a total of 2 units in the discard pile for Joel, so he's not anywhere near his Lichguard Sentinels being able to attack for 6, and it's a bit of a bummer he doesn't have a Royal Phylactery affixed to any of those. Our players have by this point both passed on their actions, and now I suppose we may as well see Illuminor Szeras swing for 2 at one of these units. Thomas does not have any shields whatsoever, so I'll be very curious to see if combat ends up going not so well for Thomas. We do have a copy of Xemian Orbital City that's going to be able to do something along the lines of returning this Ennui Prelate to play at that planet. The Prelate is going to attack the Lichguard Sentinel for 4, and let's see what happens. It's going to still be alive, and then this is going to be a sterling opportunity for Illuminor Szeras to, I suppose, use Reanimation Protocol to pull some damage off of it. So whoops, I had all my caps lock on. My bad. And now the Lichguard is going to practically be dead, but now the Ennui Prelate is going to be bouncing away from that planet for subsequent return to that planet, courtesy of the Orbital City, so it is now gone. It's going to be our Necron player's chance to maybe use a Reanimation Protocol, but I think if it were me, well, you don't know what your opponent has in hand, but I think I would want to lure them into a point where their unit is going to be surprisingly killed by vivisection, as opposed to using it up front and then threatening to destroy those units with an attack. Like, maybe that's not going to make any difference, maybe it will, but I suppose, are we going to see vivisection now, or are we going to see mechanical enhancement now? I will wait with bated breath in regard to what Joel does. So we've got an action. It is now all up to Joel to decide what he wants to do. He indicates that he does not have an action. Thomas probably doesn't have an action, and then that'll be an opportunity for our Necron player to attack, probably with Szeras. But let's see what he's going to do. Both players have passed. I apologize for the slow rate of this game. Groot Hunter is going to be the recipient of an attack, so that is going to be a likely dead unit. And perhaps we're actually going to see Illuminor Szeras with a sufficient amount of mass to be able to survive the battle at this planet. Perhaps I was speaking too disparagingly of Illuminor Szeras, and maybe I did not quite give him enough of a fair shake here. So Joel indicates one moment. He needs a moment to think. And yes, all of these Tau are going to be buffed with a +1 attack value bonus. So as Joel thinks, why don't I go ahead and pause the video and let's wait for what he does. Okay, so we see a copy of Reanimation Protocol played, and I can only imagine that's going to pull a couple of points of damage off of that Lichguard Sentinel. That is going to be 3 resources, and that is going to be an adequate number of resources with which to play Vivisection. We could have alternatively seen Mechanical Enhancement played, but then that may have resulted in not enough additional opportunities to heal to accrue another couple of resources. Until if we see mechanical enhancement used now, that would just be 1 resource remaining, and then we'd have to have another combat round occur for the Canoptech Spider to pull damage off of the Lichguard Sentinel, and then maybe another combat round for that to happen again, and then that could trigger Vivisection, but Vivisection itself is probably going to be doing enough healing to make mechanical enhancement relatively easy to play. We see the Xemian Orbital City be used to return the Ennui Prelate to that planet, so it's going to be able to attack again for Armor Bane 4. We now see mechanical enhancement played, so all of these units, all these Necron units, are going to be getting +2 HP until the end of the phase, and that means that the Lichguard Sentinel here is going to be sitting at a total of 8 HP, and unfortunately for Thomas, 4 + 3 is only going to be 7, so that unit is going to be chilling at 1 HP remaining. And then as soon as Thomas kills it, that's going to be a unit that is not going to be able to be healed by Vivisection. And then as soon as this Canoptech Spider is killed, then that is going to completely shut off all additional opportunities for any of these units to heal. So the Ennui Prelate is going to be returning once again to Aun'shi's HQ. Now the Lichguard Sentinel is going to have to attack. It'll presumably be able to kill off another copy of Groot Hunter, and I guess once that happens, that's going to be another 3 attack unit gone from this planet, and then this is going to be able to attack for 2. We don't have another copy of Kauyon Strike, so basically the Earthcast Technician is going to be able to attack for 2. This is going to attack for 1, and it'll hang around. The Ethereal Envoy here is going to attack for 2, but then it has to leave the planet, and then Aun'shi is only going to be able to attack for 3. and then he is going to have to leave the planet as well. So it looks like our Necron player is actually probably going to be able to win the battle at this planet. Looks like I was the naysayer, the doomsayer, speaking too early. And if Joel manages to win the battle at this planet, if he's going to be able to win the battle at planet number 2, if he's also going to be able to win the battle at planet number 3, then that may well end up being the game for him. All he's going to have to do is he's going to have to try to clear out this copy of these 2 ethereal envoys. So the Lychguard Sentinel, to no one's surprise, takes a swing at that Kroot Hunter. It's going to be outright killed, and man, I guess now this is going to be very curious indeed. These 2 ethereal envoys are still going to be hanging out here at our soon-to-be planet number 3. Well, anyway, it's currently planet number 3. It's eventually going to be our first planet. Those 2 ethereal envoys are going to be hanging out at that location. One has the Honor Blade, one's got a copy of Ion Rifle, and I'll just be really curious to see what exactly is going to happen with them. It's a bit of a shame that we can't see Master Program used now to remove a whopping 7 points of damage off of this Lychguard Sentinel, but that Kroot Hunter is now going to be dead. We're going to see our Earthcast Technician take a swing. It's going to deal the killing blow to that Lychguard Sentinel, so good night, sweet prince. That's going to be the little action window dance for either of our players, and I guess we don't see any additional actions or anything from our Necron players, so Joel indicates that he's done. That's going to be the Ethereal Envoy here attacking for 2, the Recon Drones for 1, Aun'shi for 3, and then as soon as that occurs, that is going to be Armorbane shut off. So I think if it were me, what can I deal damage to with 1? I guess you could kill the Warriors. Well, crap. Yeah, no. Okay, kill the Warriors of Gidrim. Well, I guess all you can really do is set up units to die as soon as they lose their HP bonus at the end of the phase. So the Ethereal Envoy deals 2 points of damage to the Canoptech Spider. I suppose the Recon Drones may as well finish the job. What works is, I guess, like when we come to the end of a combat round, like let's say all this crap is gone, we could come to the end of a combat round, the unit's ready, you've got your opportunity to retreat, and then there is an action window prior to the battle finishing, and there's certainly plenty of, opportunities to use actions prior to the end of the combat phase. So what I'm basically trying to say is you can use the Canoptech Spider to discard this Canoptech Spider from hand in order to preserve its own life. You could do cute little stuff like that, but the Recon Drones is going to deal a point of Armor Bane damage to the Canoptech Spider, and now it's going to be up to Aun'shi. Is he going to finish off this Canoptech Spider early, or otherwise is he going to, deal damage to another one of these units? He could... I guess what could he do? He could kill one of these Canoptech Scarab Swarms, or he could, I guess, finish off the Spider, but he's not going to be able to drop any of these units, save a Scarab Swarm or the Warriors of Gidrim, to a threshold where it will die as soon as Mechanical Enhancements buff disappears. So... we have got Aun'shi. He's got to take an attack. Is he going to be okay? He's going to be dealing damage to this Canoptech Scarab Swarm. It's going to be sitting at 3 points of damage with just 1 HP remaining, and we're not going to be seeing Vivisection during this fight. So it has 4 HP, so it's not actually dead. So we've got to see that returned to the table. So it's going to be back, and it's got 3 points of damage on it, and then Aun'shi is going to be bouncing back to his HQ there. So even though Thomas recalled, importantly, Joel did not. But it has 1 HP. It has 1 HP, though, because Aun'shi, of course, derives benefit from the Ennui Prelate. So 3 damage on She got +1 attack from Prelate. So there, that is basically how that works. And now we're all caught up. So we are out of attacks, and now we're going to come to the end of the combat round, and this is going to be a sterling opportunity, if ever there was one, for us to see the Canoptech Spider probably heal itself. Of course, 2 resources is not going to be enough for Vivisection, and the Eldritch Lance itself has to be attached, as opposed to exhausting the attached Warlord, so things are going awfully slow, for which I apologize apologize, my dear viewers, but we come to the end of the combat round. Both of our players are going to have opportunities to retreat. I don't foresee Szeras retreating with any of these units here. Yep, Joel decides to stay with everything. Is Thomas going to be retreating with everything? So, interestingly enough, that is going to be the Planet 1 by Szeras. He's going to have the opportunity to take a look at the top 3 cards of his deck, add any one of those cards to his hand. He's going to have to prevent Thomas from winning the fight at our second to last planet. And then I guess Szeras is going to have to drop off all of his guys at that planet, and then we're also going to have to see Szeras block not just planet number soon to be 1, but also planet soon to be number 2. So this is definitely going to be a little bit tricky for Szeras. By no means is he out of the woodwork yet. Joel quite wisely decides to use his Canoptech Spider. He's going to, heal his spider. He's going to be gaining 1 resource from doing so, and I think that will probably bring us to the end of the combat round, and the Canoptech Scarab Swarm is now going to be dying. So mechanical enhancement is going to be gone, and I guess our cards are getting slightly out of order. Not that it matters in this case, but it certainly would matter if we were seeing something along the lines of, oh gosh, I guess Onrakir the Traveler would make a big difference, and I think Doom Scythe Invader also returns vehicles from your discard pile into play. I don't think Joel actually has that in his deck, and Canoptech Spiders don't count as vehicles, so there's no synergy there. But regardless, I guess Lychguard Sentinel is going to be moved to the table. I'll say you need not have revealed that for what it's worth. And yeah, I guess that is going to be that. So if we come to the end of combat, that's going to be mechanical enhancement gone. This planet is going to be captured whoops. So never mind, my mistake. Yep, so he's totally right. It was the Canoptech Scarab Swarm returning the Lychguard Sentinel to his hand. So my bad, totally distracted here by Eloith. Joel is now going to look at the top 3 cards of his deck and not reveal one of those cards. And now he's going to add a Decaying Warrior Squad to his hand. And this is pretty superb, because if you can keep generating resources from Szeras, then you've got a great opportunity to repeatedly replay the Decaying Warrior Squad here for the cost of 2. You can just continually deploy it, which is, of course, obviously a rather powerful effect here. So I guess we'll have to see what exactly happens. We finally are about to come to the end of combat. This Ethereal Envoy is going to be going, well, both of these envoys are going to be going back to Thomas, so he's going to be able to regain control all of those units, and now we're going to be seeing probably our second to last HQ phase, and it's looking like this is likely going to be a 7 planet game, which just seems absolutely absurd, but I'll be really curious to see if Thomas is going to end up winning it at the last moment, or if one of these players is going to make a goofy mistake and maybe Thomas will win at planet number 1, or if we'll see Szeras go the distance and end up winning this one. So let's go ahead and see our HQ phase occur. That'll be the initiative token being passed to Aun'shi, and that will be 4 resources and 2 cards for each of our players. So finally we see it, and here's going to be that copy of Royal Phylactery, and this is going to be really, really dangerous because we've got a copy of Master Program in play, we've got a copy of Royal Phylactery, and that on a Lychguard Sentinel is going to be incredibly nasty. We've got Vivisection as well, and that combination of cards could be just nasty enough to allow Szeras to end up winning this one. Like Royal Phylactery, if you attach this to a Lychguard Sentinel, after a phase begins or a combat round begins, you pull a point of damage from the attached unit, you gain a resource. And that'll be enough to repeatedly fund a copy of Decaying Warrior Squad, which you can discard with your Canoptech Spider to heal, your Regenerating Lich Guard. You can use Vivisection at the last planet when you can hit as many enemy units as possible, and if by some miracle you manage to heal a whole ton of your units and you accrue a whole ton of resources, you know, a lot of Aun'shi's units bounce back to his HQ upon successful resolution of their attack, and if your opponent is losing units because of that forced reaction and you can repeatedly play a Decaying Warrior Squad, even if it's just getting killed, that could just be an absolute nightmare for you. So let's go ahead and take a look and see how many cards, unit cards in the discard pile our Necron player has. It's looking like it's 1, 2, 3... 4, so he's getting awfully close to that threshold. 4 units in his discard pile. As soon as the unit dies, and as soon as he decides to discard a copy of Decaying Warrior Squad, that is going to be 6, and that is going to be both copies of the Lichguard Sentinel sitting there at 10 HP, which is just going to be absolutely absurd. We've now got 3 copies of Xemian Orbital City in play, so Aun'shi can return, or an Ennui Prelate can return 3 times to a target planet, which is just insane. And you know, remember, we've still got our enslavement dial set to Tau. We've got that Mindshackle Scarab affixed to this unit that's got that copy of Ion Rifle, but we're going to have to be so incredibly careful to try to clear out this Ethereal Envoy that's got Honor Blade attached to it, just because that's going to be each other Tau unit at the planet gaining +1 attack, which does include one's Warlord. So we've got a copy of Borkon Recruits at planet number 1, but we do have that Royal Phylactery affixed to this copy of Lichguard Sentinel. So this is going to be a little bit of a tricky situation here. Is it going to be our Tau player sending his Warlord train to planet number 1, and the same thing can be said for our Necron, or what all are we going to see? If we see one of these players decide, like if Thomas sends all of his units to planet number 2, he's going to be set up fantastically to just annihilate our Necron player if our Necron player does not also send his units to planet number 2. But if our Necron goes to planet number 2 and Thomas goes to planet number 1, then he is just going to be, you know, it's not going to end well for our player here. So I suppose this is a bit of a gamble. Both players are deciding where they want to send their warlords. Thomas picked up another copy of Ennui Prelate, so he's going to be able to give all of his units at this planet like +2 total attack, thanks to the Ennui Prelate, thanks to the Honor Blade, and one of those is, of course, going to be something else. I'll say this is a proxy match for what it's worth to Darth Shaker there, so of course, yeah, it's not going to make any sense. Both of our players decided to go to planet number 1, so this is going to be pretty interesting. I suppose it was not exactly the... I think the conservative move for Thomas would have been to send all of his units to planet number 2 and then absolutely annihilate our Necron there. So maybe that was a mistake, but we'll have to see what exactly ends up happening. The Borkon Recruits here, for instance, I mean, like, basically this is going to be a great opportunity for really either of our players to do some pretty dirty things. Like, Thomas can drop his Ennui Prelate into play. He's got initiative. It can attack for 4, Armor Bane, deal a whole ton of damage to a unit at this planet, and then we can keep seeing the Xemian Orbital City return any of these units to the same planet, and they can keep attacking with Armor Bane. Like, we could see that Ennui Prelate do 4, 4, 4, or this one we could see do, like, you know, 5, 5, 5. A lot of different options here. So let's go ahead and just see how combat resolves. All right, so it looks like Joel is ready here at planet number 1. We've got a total of 2 command icons versus 3 command icons, so planet number 1 is going to be a couple of resources for Thomas, which isn't going to do him any good, and planet number 2 is also going to be a couple of resources for Thomas. So I will say, don't forget command struggles. I don't think that they did command struggles. because I want to make sure that our players are going to be gaining their allotted number of resources. But we've got combat occurring, and again, my apologies for a bit of a sloppy play here, but I don't think our players were anticipating that this match was going to be going half so long as it is. We've got an Ennui Prelate having been dropped to play at this planet. That's going to be 10 resources and no cards for our Tau player. And now let's see what happens. It's going to be Aun'shi's opportunity to attack. Joel has got no resources, but that's going to be changing. Master Program and Eldritch Lance and this Canoptech Spider are going to be able to result in him gaining 3 resources minimum, or exactly, and then Vivisection can be used, and that's going to be a lot of damage dealt to these units, but I would be rather surprised if our Tau player manages to... Sorry, let me rephrase that. I would be surprised if our Necron player manages to end up salvaging this one. But we'll certainly have to see what happens. This Decaying Warrior squad could certainly make a fair bit of difference as well. It looks like Eldritch Lance, Exhausts, and then Readies are okay, so it does not actually pull any damage off of anything, which could be a bit of a poor choice. Like if this Canoptech Spider ends up being killed, then that's only going to be 2 resources gained by Joel, so hopefully this isn't going to come back and cost him the game. But I suppose I misspoke. This Lichguard Sentinel does have to be declared the recipient of an attack, so this is going to be a Borkon recruits attacking for a grand total of 5. The Lichguard Sentinel is only going to be sitting with 1 HP remaining. Let's do another quick discard pile count. I believe we're still at 4. So 1, 2, 3, 4 units in total. If we see the Spider discard Decaying Warrior squad, that's going to pull 2 points of damage off of it. Then we could see Eldritch Lance used, although I suppose we could also see this Mind Shackle Scarab discarded, and then that would be the Lichguard Sentinel readied and healed. So I think if it were me, I would probably use the Lichguard Sentinel to attack, and then I would use Master Program to pull all the damage off of it and heal it, throwing away this copy of Mind Shackle Scarab. Both of our players pass on actions. Is it going to be the Lichguard Sentinel attacking? I can only imagine that that is indeed going to be the case, but we will have to see. The Ennui Prelate is exhausting. Wait. So Necron has to attack. Want to make sure to go ahead and get that right. Yeah, so Joel, it's his opportunity to attack, so it looks like he's just kind of taking his sweet time, probably trying to do all the math really carefully here. And what exactly is Joel going to do? My apologies for the duration of this match, my dear viewers. But I suppose let's pause for a moment and let our Necron player decide. Okay, so Lichguard Sentinel is going to be taking a swing, but what is going to be the recipient? We know that there's not going to be any shielding opportunities, so that is going to be a dead copy of Recon Drones. It was attacking with a buff of +1, courtesy of this Ennui Prelate here, and now I can only imagine that we'll see our Tau player pass. Yep, so he passes on action, and now do we see Master Program heal at the, basically throwing away this, yep, there we are. So Master Program, okay, that is, I don't know if I agree with that choice. Canoptech Scarab Swarm is going to be gone, but I guess our Necron player wants to get as many cards in his discard pile as possible, so he's going to currently be at 1, 2, 3, 4... 5 units in his discard pile. Then as soon as Canoptech Spider discards this Decaying Warrior squad, he's going to be at 6, and then the Sentinels, both of them are going to be sitting awfully pretty with a grand reservoir of 10 HP. But we're quickly running out of ways to heal these units. I guess Canoptech Spider and Eldritch Lance are together going to be able to provide 2 additional resources. The Ennui Prelate swings for 4 Armor Bane, and it's going to deal a hefty chunk of damage to the Lichguard Sentinel, and now it's going to be either the Sentinel's opportunity to attack or it's going to be Illuminor Szeras. We can see Eldritch Lance and the Canoptech Spider used in conjunction conjunction to enable the play of a Vivisection. And I suppose knowing that, it's a little bit of a shame that we saw an attack wasted against a 1 HP recon drones, just because that would be outright destroyed by this Vivisection, because Thomas clearly doesn't have any shield cards in hand. So that would have been a great opportunity for this Lich Guard to do something along the lines of kill this Borkon recruits, or even damage an Ennui Prelate that would end up being killed by a Vivisection. So unfortunately, that is going to be a suboptimal play there. Canoptech Spider, we see another unit discarded. That is going to be threshold of 6 attained. So now this is going to be a 10 HP unit. There we see Illuminor Szeras exhaust to attack something. I think, okay, it's going to be this copy of Borkon Recruits, which is going to be outright killed. I suppose it's not really the end of the world that that is gone. Like, you could have softened up a Prelate or something to take a bunch of damage, but I guess that's fine. This Ennui Prelate is going to be returned to the planet courtesy of Xemian Orbital City. There's now a trio of those in play. Both of our players have drawn through 27 or 28 cards, respectively, which is just absurd. And now, do we have an action from our Necron? Do we see Eldritch Lance used or not? I suppose there's no better time than the present to use Eldritch Lance, heal your copy of Lichguard Sentinel, and then maybe use Vivisection when you can at least hit this present Ennui Prelate. So what are we seeing? No, I guess we're not seeing Eldritch Lance quite yet, so let me just check again. I'm pretty sure we've got a total of 6 units in the discard pile. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yep, so that is going to be 6. It's going to be the Ennui Prelate's opportunity to attack for 4. And so the Lich Guard does have 10 HP. Just to make sure that both players know that. So the Lich Guard stays in play. The Ennui Prelate is going to be evacuated from the planet, and perhaps Royal Phylactery is going to be absolutely doing some work here. So the Ennui Prelate, for I think the second time, is going to be forcibly removed from the planet because of its forced reaction, and I suppose for that reason it's going to be a rather low priority target. But Joel is going to have to manage to win at this planet, and then he's going to have to survive with enough units to be able to win a battle at this second planet as well. So Thomas indicates that he passes on action. Now it's going to be our Necron player's chance to attack with the Lichguard Sentinel. What exactly is he going to be attacking in the first place? Is it going to be this Ennui Prelate? I think if it were me, I would attack the Prelate, and then I would cast my Vivisection out there. He uses the Illuminor Szeras to pull a point of damage off of the Lichguard Sentinel. Now he's going to be at 3 resources, which is Vivisection range, and perhaps we'll see it. If we do see it, that is going to be 2 resources gained by our Necron player. That's probably going to be the absolute best that he can indeed hope for from that effect, and that's going to be a dead copy of ECT and recon drones, but unfortunately not much else. Thomas indicates that he is passed, and now do we see Vivisection or do we see simply another attack? It's all going to be up to Joel, but like I said, if it were me, it would be this Ennui Prelate, probably taking a couple of points of damage, and then Vivisection would finish the job. The Lichguard Sentinel exhausts, and it is going to deal a gift of 2 damage onto the Kroot Hunter. So very interesting that he is deciding not to kill off these units. He's deciding to kill units that, because of their forced reaction, do not remove themselves or extricate themselves from the planet. But with all of these orbital cities, that strategy isn't nearly as effective as it would necessarily otherwise be. We see a second orbital city used, and again, this is going to be the Ennui Prelate that can attack for 4, and now it's going to have free reign to target any of these units it would like. If it attacks the Canoptech Spider, then that is going to be 1 resource gone, like it would be Vivisection healing 1 fewer unit, and that would disallow Joel from being able to gain an additional resource here. So that is going to be 4. It's only swinging for 4. And what is Thomas going to target with that effect? The Ennui Prelate plus Aun'shi is going to be enough damage to kill the Lichguard Sentinel, because, you know, total of 7. That makes 12. Even with Vivisection, it's still going to be outright killed. And if you can prevent the Royal Phylactery from triggering, then that is probably going to be very recommendable. So, very slow play from both of our players, but who are we going to see attacked? The Ennui Prelate can pick absolutely any target at once, but let me pause and just see who Thomas decides on. All right, so Joel has passed on his action, and now it is truly going to be Thomas's opportunity to swing. So what exactly is Thomas going to target? If it were me, I would probably be attacking this Lichguard Sentinel. No, okay, that's a totally respectable choice. It's going to be the Canoptech Spider, because we've got another copy of Xemian Orbital City that could return the Ennui Prelate to that planet, and then the Prelate plus Aun'shi could result in the death of the Lichguard Sentinel there. So Canoptech Spider being outright killed means that there's one fewer target for Vivisection to refund resources, which is a bit of a damn shame. I'm not exactly sure what Joel is waiting for. It's not like our, you know, Tau player is going to sprinkle damage among all these different units. And now we've got this Prelate. Is it going to be attacking the Sentinel? Is Aun'shi going to be helping it to attack the Sentinel? Only kind of crappy thing about this is once Aun'shi attacks, once the Sentinel attacks one more time, then these units are going to be removed from the planet. And I guess I'll be curious to see what exactly happens. If Szeras ends up winning this planet, he's going to be able to route this copy of the Ethereal Envoy, which has the Honor Blade, and then during the next round's combat, he's going to be able to use his Mindshackle Scarabs to gain control of this Ethereal Envoy. So Joel indicates that he has passed, and now it's going to be up to Thomas to attack again. Let's say he uses both of his units to kill this unit here, then we could see Vivisection. That's going to be dead, and wounded, 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 and then he's going to have enough units still hanging out at the planet to be able to win that battle. And then it's all going to come down to, is Szeras going to be able to drop off enough mass of units at the final battle of the game to end up winning it? The Ennui Prelate exhausts. That's going to be 4 points of damage dealt to the Lichguard Sentinel. And I can only imagine that now the Prelate is going to be bouncing away from that planet, because that does have to happen now. You know, I guess maybe Joel's hanging on to this Vivisection for battle at the very last planet, but I think he may need to benefit from that effect. Like, this is kind of interesting how this is going to happen. So Aun'shi's attack is probably going to end up killing this Lichguard Sentinel, because otherwise it's going to heal and regen resources for Szeras. The initiative token is going to be in the possession of Aun'shi, so if we don't see Vivisection used, like prior to any of these 1 HP units getting off an attack, then that's going to be unnecessary amounts of damage being dealt to Thomas. So, you know, maybe he wants a unit to... unnecessary amounts of damage dealt to Szeras or Joel. So maybe he wants one of his units to take damage, and then he can Vivisection that damage away. But I don't really think... Like, you're not going to have multiple damaged units, so you may as well just get it over with and kill off these 1 HP units and just see what happens. But both of our players have passed on their respective opportunities for actions. Aun'shi is now going to ever so slowly attack and probably kill the Lichguard Sentinel. Oh my god, Aun'shi, kill it, kill it, kill it. So it's going to be killed, it's going to be killed. Remove it from the tabletop. I don't know. Okay. My bad. Earlier, God, don't I feel stupid? Slumbering Gardens prevents Aun'shi from being moved from that planet. So I suppose I have to apologize for saying it's a terrible deck inclusion. Normally, Xemian has taken the place of Slumbering Gardens for a lot of decks because it's kind of objectively better, but I guess if you've got 3 Xemian Orbital Cities in play, you may as well benefit from having a Slumbering Gardens out as well. So Aun'shi is going to be able to hang out at this planet, and that is definitely a contingency I was not anticipating. So we're going to be coming to the end of the combat round here. Thomas indicates that he is done. Joel also indicates that he is done. And we are going to be readying. So the combat round comes to an end. Both of our players are going to have opportunities to retreat should they choose to do so, and this is just ending up being an enormously long game. So if you are sticking it out this far, my viewers, then hats off to you. Hopefully this video doesn't garner too many dislikes just owing to the ridiculous length of it, or perhaps I am needlessly concerned. But let's see. We are about to go to another combat phase. It looks like Joel is maybe taking an action. I'm going to go ahead and pause gameplay for a moment. All right, so after a bit of a break, we are back, and we're at the top of a combat round here. So both of our players have to decide whether or not they want to keep their units at the planet. Thomas has got initiative. He's got to decide first. Aun'shi is going to be all out of actions here, so it's going to be our Tau player's opportunity to attack first. This Lichguard Sentinel currently has 10 HP. It's going to be able to soak 4, this is attacking for 5. So it's going to be 5, 6, 7. I guess all of our players are going to stay. Will we see Vivisection after we see one of these units attack? I would imagine it'll be the Aun'shi Prelate delivering an attack at Illuminor, or not Illuminor Szeras, sorry, the Lichguard Sentinel, and then we'll probably see Vivisection kill these 2 units and then damage all the remaining others. So if this is going to be 5, let's call it 6, 7, 8, 9, and then Aun'shi makes 12, that'll be enough to kill the Lichguard Sentinel, but then that's going to be a lot of ethereal units removed from the planet. So this Lichguard Sentinel will die. It may die, depending on what we see damage dealt to, just to protect all the other units. But it's entirely possible that Szeras may win this one. So Thomas indicates that he's got no actions. Joel, whom is a slightly slower player than I think he's still waiting on whether or not he wants to use Vivisection or whether he wants to attack. Perhaps, well, I guess we've already invested enough time in this match that we may as well just see it resolved without any hurriedness or play mistakes. It's going to be Aun'shi's opportunity to act. And what exactly are we going to see fire? So Thomas swings with the Aun'shi Prelate. That's going to be 5 points of damage dealt to the Lichguard. It's going to be 5. I will just go ahead and say can confirm 5. So the Aun'shi Prelate is now going to bounce away from that planet. It's not going to be able to be returned for once, which is kind of nice. And now let's go ahead and see one of these units attack. So it could be Szeras killing off this copy of the Viorla Marksman. And I can only imagine that that is probably what we're going to be seeing here. So it's going to be both of our players doing the little action window dance. Thomas indicates that he is done. I suppose now is when we see Vivisections. That's going to be 1 point of damage removed from the Lichguard Sentinel, and then that's going to be 1 point of damage dealt to all Tau units. So again, it's a little bit regrettable that earlier we saw a point of attack wasted on a recon drones, but that's going to be the dead ECT. It's going to be the wounded Ethereal Envoy, Aun'shi, and Viorla Marksman, and now Vivisection is going to be in the discard pile of Joel, and he only gained 1 single resource from it, but definitely beats nothing. And now it's going to be our Necron player's turn to take an attack. You may as well use your Warriors of Gidrim to kill off the Viorla Marksman, because you know you're not going to have to deal with anything. Or I suppose if you wanted to, you could try to load up Aun'shi with damage. I suppose really the choice is yours. If we were to kill the Viorla Marksman that's currently a 2-2, then we could see Aun'shi deal that 3, and then this could deal it 2, and then that would not be enough damage to end up killing it. So Thomas is trying to decide, does he want to kill the Envoy or the Viorla Marksman, or does he want instead to try to kill Aun'shi? or not kill Aun'shi, but deal additional points of damage to Aun'shi. So Thomas is currently lost in thought. It's looking like this game is going to be going all the way to planet number 7 in a monumentally long, gosh, this has turned into quite the epic here. But Thomas is thinking, I'm going to go ahead and pause the video yet again, and let's see what occurs. Thomas indicates that he's got no actions. He shuffles his units, and I think it's going to be... Let's see, our last action was the play of Vivisection. So we've got Augmented Warriors, which are going to be attacking, and they're going to attack the Ethereal Envoy, which would have removed itself from the planet regardless. So interesting target, but I guess we want to get rid of those, and now it's going to be Aun'shi's opportunity. If he wants, he can attack with his Viewer Marksman, and then that's going to be a total of 5 points of damage between these two units. Nearly killing, but not quite finishing off this copy of the Lychguard Sentinel. And that's a bit of a shitty situation for Thomas, just because Master Program, upon sacrifice of a drone, like we could see during the next round, we could see Mindshackle Scarab used, we gain control of the Ethereal Envoy, then we see Master Program sacrifice this drone trait card to heal the Lychguard Sentinel from 9 damage to 0, which is just absurd. So let's kind of see what happens there. Yep, so the total is 3 points of damage. And now, after Aun'shi takes a swing, the Lychguard Sentinel is going to be wounded, and there we go. So that's going to be 1 point of damage dealt to that copy of the Viewer Marksman. And now this is very interesting because it's going to be up to Illuminor Szeras, and I feel like it was looking pretty grim for him, but now he may well be able to come back and win this one. He's got a whole hell of a lot of HP worth of units. Of course, Aun'shi is going to be able to deal a whole ton of damage to him, but yeah, that's going to be fair in routing this Ethereal Envoy that's holding the Honor Blade, and perhaps, if things speed up a little bit, I'll get a bit of a second, third, or fourth wind. Yes, that's going to be Illuminor Szeras returning to his HQ. All of these units are indeed going to be returning to his HQ. That's going to be a Planet 1 by Illuminor Szeras. And now let's move into our final round of the game, no matter what. Thank you, sweet, merciful Chaos Gods. That will be 4 resources and 2 cards for each of our players in just a moment, as soon as Thomas ends the turn. And then this is pretty much going to be it. We see another copy of Lychguard Sentinel. We see another copy of Vivisection. And this Lychguard Sentinel is going to be a 10 HP unit played at the last planet. And that is going to be an absolute nightmare for Aun'shi to chew through. It's going to be like Goku fighting Frieza is what this is going to represent. Somehow I don't think that Necrons are able to go Super Saiyan, but I suppose we'll have to see. Maybe I'll end up being surprised. We've got gun drones drawn by Thomas, and this is going to be rather interesting. So he is going to be able to affix this copy of gun drones to any of his units, but they're all going to be showing up exhausted, and all of these exhausted units are just going to be kind of like picked apart. The instant that Szeras manages to kill that unit with gun drones, that is going to be one hell of a difficult situation for him to deal with. Like, we could see Lychguard Sentinel here at planet number 1. We could see this Ethereal Envoy that can attack for a total of 4. The 2 of those are going to be able to kill any area effect unit that Thomas has got, and even with all the orbital cities in the world, I don't think he's going to be able to chew through a soon-to-be total of 10 HP Lychguard Sentinel and a second 10 HP Lychguard Sentinel. So Joel is going to have to make it's not even really a careful decision here, let's be real. He should just spend all of his resources on this Lychguard Sentinel, wonderful top deck, and that is pretty much going to mean that there's going to be nothing that his opponent's going to be able to do. We could see Eldritch Lance plus Master Program result in 2 additional resources for the Necron player, we've got Lichguard Sentinel played. That's 2 command icons versus 1, but if Thomas is going to lay down a copy of recon drones at this planet, if he can prevent his opponent from getting 2 resources, then things are going to go very well for him, but I guess we'll have to see if he's going to bother playing the recon drones or not. He may not realize that there's kind of a lot hinging upon whether or not he does decide to do those recon drones. Yes, that is going to be that copy of recon drones, and oh my god, I'm stupid. Why not put the copy of gun drones on the recon drones? But then the problem there is they've only got 1 hit point, and Szeras has got initiative. Currently, Thomas has got no shield cards in hand. That is going to be abundantly clear, and that means any single ready Necron unit that can attack for as little as 1 point of damage is going to be able to quite handily destroy that copy of gun drones, which, quite wisely, Thomas did not bother playing as an attachment. It's just a conventional unit, and that is the wise thing, because Aun'shi is going to at least afford it the opportunity to attack for 3. So, looks like we've got people quoting aliens in the chat log, and yeah, I guess we send both of our warlords to planet number 1, and when it looks like, man, this was one hell of a harrowing match, but it looks like we just may end up seeing Szeras win this one, and by, you know, when I say just may, I'm thinking we will indeed see Szeras win this one. So, man, what a game. I wonder if these suboptimal uses of Xemian Orbital City in the beginning of the game really came back to bite Thomas and perhaps cost him the game in the end. But we've got our command phase, so it's not going to make any difference, but, you know, I'm just going to let our players miss their command. Nope, he did recall, so good on him. It's going to be 2 additional resources, so Thomas ending the game with 14 resources, no cards in hand. For Joel, we've only got 0 resources and 2 cards, but one of those is going to be a 1 shield value Vivisection. So he's only got 2 opportunities to heal units, so we're not going to see Vivisection used for anything but shields, because Aun'shi is not going to be able to stay around at that planet forever. We're going to see the Ethereal Envoy. Its control is going to be snagged, so that's going to be able to attack for 4. Do note that all of these Tau units are going to derive the benefit of the Honor Blade here on this Ethereal Envoy, so that definitely would not be a bad choice at all to destroy. You know, why not use your Ethereal Envoy to attack this other Ethereal Envoy, and then you can send it to the depths of hell. But alternatively, you could use it to kill off these dangerous ennui prelates. So there's a lot of different interesting choices. Aun'shi is going to be able to attack himself for 3, so I think I would probably get rid of the Honor Blade ASAP. So, Mindshackle Scarab, this unit is going to be controlled. What exactly could we see done? Initiative is going to be in the possession of our Necron player, so the Ethereal Envoy here is going to be safe for the time being. We're going to see it attack, and is it going to be attacking? Yes, it's going to be attacking and killing the Ethereal Envoy, so Honor Blade is gone. That's why it's a frightening prospect to affix your signature attachment to any unit other than your Warlord. That Ethereal Envoy is going to be gone. Now, the gun drones are only going to be able to attack for 2 armor bane. The recon drones is going to attack for a paltry 0 armor bane. I don't know why we're seeing this already. I guess that is, again, suboptimal, pulling 7 points of damage off of that unit when you could have removed 9 points of damage from that unit. So that is just a damn shame to see that, you know, inefficient use of master program there, but it's probably not going to end up mattering too much in the end. Gun Drones is going to deliver an attack at 1 of these ready copies of Lichguard Sentinel, and now, I suppose Illuminor Szeras, the Lichguard Sentinels, they may as well try to kill off. Well, I guess, I suppose what would I do? I would do 1 Illuminor Szeras to kill Gun Drones, and then these 2 guys to kill an Ennui Prelate. Aun'shi and the Prelates are going to be able to, you know, kind of bounce back and forth from this planet. We're going to see the Eldritch Lance pull a point of damage off of the Lichguard Sentinel, which is fine. It just really breaks my heart that we didn't see the copy of Master Program do a little bit more use there. Illuminor Szeras is going to dote 2 points of damage lovingly upon this copy of Ennui Prelate, and now we could see Recon Drones attack, we could see Aun'shi attack, and I'll just be curious to see what all exactly happens. Both of our players no longer really have any interesting actions with which to use. This copy of Ethereal Envoy is essentially gone for the remainder of the game until the end of the phase is, how long it lasts. But if Szeras ends up winning this planet, then that is going to be the game for Illuminor Szeras here. So that is going to be a damage. Ennui Prelate. Do we see Recon Drones or do we see Aun'shi attack? I suppose it doesn't really matter too terribly much, but I suppose let's just get it over with. Aun'shi is going to be attacking either copy of the Lichguard Sentinel, but you may as well not distribute the damage, not that it matters, since Vivisection is not going to be an option for the remainder of this match. We see Slumbering Gardens used to prevent Aun'shi from retreating from that planet, and now it's going to be both of these copies of Lichguard Sentinel, which are together going to be free to kill this copy of Gun Drones. Or, I guess what they could do is they could deal all their damage to the Ennui Prelate here. So, certainly they've got myriad options. Again, just God, such a damn shame that we saw that Master Program used when it was. Lichguard Sentinel is going to finish off the Ennui Prelate, and then maybe we'll see this Gun Drones killed, because we may as well remove another attacker. And then it's just going to be these 3 aggravating copies of Orbital City, repeatedly returning Aun'shi to the same planet. But it's going to be a total of, I guess we could see the Ennui Prelate attack 3 additional times courtesy of that, but I think it's going to be insufficient to end up killing off all these Necrons here. The Gun Drones is going to be attacking for 0, and I suppose let's go ahead and Halo-style finish the fight for the love of the Ruinous Powers and the Hive Mind, and also I suppose the Old Gods or the Catan, whatever it is that are sort of loosely allied with the Necrons. I suppose I did forget about this unit. The Decaying Warrior Squad is going to be dropped into play, and that is going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6... Yeah, it's 7 units in the discard pile, so that is going to be the Decaying Warrior Squad return to play, and that Ennui Prelate is going to be killed, which is going to be absolutely superb, because that's going to disallow Aun'shi the opportunity to return that 4 attack value unit repeatedly to play at the planet with those orbital cities, so that's also going to be that Lichguard Sentinel now killing the Ennui Prelate. That is going to be dead, and now we're going to come to the end of the combat round. We're going to end up readying all of these units, and my God, I had about, I wrote off Joel's ability to win this game quite some time ago, and it looks like he may end up doing it in the end here, so very interesting indeed. Our players both see if they're going to retreat. Joel decides to stay at the planet, and it looks like that may as well be the GG right there. So Thomas calls out the good game, well played by both of our players, but in the end, it looks like Joel Henigson, Dr. Tote, playing Illuminor Szeras, our 3rd Necrons faction Death World Cycle Warlord, ended up winning this game. I frankly wonder if the misplay of those Ximian orbital cities at the very beginning of the game ended up costing Thomas this one, but those Lichguard Sentinels he was just unable to chew through. So, congratulations again to Joel. This was an incredibly long game, but for you viewers that managed to stick this one out, hopefully you didn't mind the game too much. Hopefully you enjoyed this glimpse of Illuminor Szeras, who even without the contents of packs 2 and 3 of the Death World cycle, he's going to end up doing some pretty dirty things. So it was fascinating seeing this Necron in action. Be sure to let us know in the comments what you think our players could have done differently in regard to deck building, in regard to strategy. What do you think about Illuminor Szeras, and what do you think about the gameplay of the still fairly classic Aun'shi? So, again, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, be sure to hit that like button, subscribe to my channel if you've not done so already. share this video if you are already subscribed to the channel. More people seeing games like this one, marathon games like this one, might mean more people are drawn to Conquest. They may give the game a try, enjoy what they experience, join our community, and of course, it's all the more reason for Fantasy Flight Games to continue to support and pour development dollars into this fantastic product. Reach out to me on social media like Facebook and on Twitter, and if you ever have any inclination whatsoever to help support this channel and keep the Hive Tyrant alive, I would be deeply appreciative from the bottom of my cold, metallic, necronic heart were you to make even $1 a month contribution to my Patreon. So, once again, thank you so much for watching, and as always, be sure to check back in again soon for much more Conquest LCG content to come.